A study of Europe's first ever universal basic income experiment has concluded that it brings health and peace of mind. UBI is a regular, unconditional payment made to every citizen. With automation already destroying thousands of jobs around the world, a universal guaranteed income could be a solution to rapid job displacement. Liberated from the desperate decision-making that poverty brings, UBI is believed to provide the safety blanket needed to allow people to pursue work as passion by learning, experimenting and innovating. Our current daily grind leaves no room for such creativity. The administrative costs saved by scrapping our large welfare state entirely could go some way to providing funds needed and without much of the headache. The rest would be raised by taxation. UBI must certainly come with caveats and we should proceed with caution. But discontent over inequality will keep rising and the political cost could be very high. If new ideas are not forthcoming, there may come a point where the poor no longer wish to play by the rules of the wealthy.
I think there's something very attractive about the idea.
It's quite counterintuitive,
I
isn't
met
it?
a professor of economics or something from the LSE called David Graeber last week, who's written a book called BS, I'm not saying the word, jobs. Sort of building on the idea that there are muck jobs that poor people do for very poor wages, that don't have a career ladder, that very low satisfaction. And he was arguing that about 60% of those jobs are also pointless. Now, if you paid people a modest sum of money a month to, let's say, develop their intellectual interests, their training to upskill, rather than spend 8 to 10 hours a day doing a job they hate, I see some virtue in that. However, I think there's a problem with introducing that while we do have a welfare state and we're trying to introduce credits that are making people poorer because they have a 6-week lag. And sorry, just one thing on the stat. I think the universal basic income they've introduced in Finland is about £500 a month.
They haven't introduced it.
That is double, or it's trial. That is about twice what you get if you are on the job seekers allowance. So the question would arise, why would you be on the job seekers allowance and having to sign on and go into an office every fortnight if you're getting money for not doing that?
But read that Finland experiment. That was the 2-year experiment, and it was a very narrow experiment because it was only carried out on the unemployed. And in Finland, they're saying it hasn't worked because they thought it would encourage people to go back to work. That's what it was about.
But it's made them all very happy. We're going to hear from one in a second.
Yeah, they didn't say that.
It's failed. The experiment has failed. And what they've done now is they're looking at alternative welfare measures. But I think work gives people purpose.
The dignity of work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. That's very old-fashioned of you, Carole.
It's not old-fashioned. And if you don't incentivise people with money, society just goes into a coma. People have to.
Would you work for minimum wage in a muck job?
No, let me just say. Let me get this out. There was a survey in America, a big survey of American people. 70% of them said they liked being in a paying job, and this was even people who didn't need the money because it gave them the dignity of work.
May I just say, and I know others want to come in, I just want to say that the assumption we're making that people won't work isn't supported by the data, and Finland didn't fail. The Finland data...
They ended it. They could have continued
Carole,
it.
let me just respond to you.
OK.
The Finnish experiment, they didn't end it. It was only ever a limited trial, right? It was only ever meant to be for that period as a purpose to look at the research. It was always meant to end. And the second point there is it didn't show that people were less incentivized to work. All it showed was that there was... No, it didn't. It actually didn't. I've got the figures with me. All it showed was there's a tiny increase, which was not significant in the people that were more incentivized. So the results were inconclusive, whereas in Alaska, the results show people are more incentivized.
Can we have, instead of you two arguing, let's hear from someone who actually participated in this trial, Sini Martinen.
So money-wise, it's not a big difference, but the sentence of the benefit being unconditional meant that I could actually get the benefit and earn on top of it with part-time work or any work. I think the biggest effect was psychological. So you kind of got this idea that you have 2 years, you have the security of 560 euros per month, and you have to do something with that money.
Can I get involved? Because I've been very good. I promise I will.
I'll come after you.
In the Finnish experiment, by the way, any recipients who took a job continued to get that payment as well. This is absurd. Maajid, you talked about work having to involve learning and experimenting. No, it doesn't. It means you get up at 7 o'clock on a rainy day, you stand at a bus queue, you wait for the bus to arrive, you go to a supermarket, you go to whatever, and you do a shift.
Done that,
Now,
Nick?
I've waited for a bus before now. I was a young man.
old-fashioned of you.
You and your professor that you mix up with, talking about jobs, that is incredibly rude, saying there's no career ladder. Because obviously you refer to McDonald's, as with other organisations like Burger King, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Marks and Spencer's, they have a tremendous process as how you grow up. There is a dignity. And June and I were appalled because as part of the research, I actually found out that we're all paid the same fee. So that's for Carole, that's for Maajid, that's for you. And unbelievably, June, they get the same money as you and I do. I mean, how does that work out? It's absurd, isn't it?
June, I know you want to come in. I found the figures that Carole and I were disputing. So let me just make it very clear that in the Finnish experiment, recipients that were on UBI worked on average 49.64 days, while those who were on traditional job seekers allowance worked 49.25. So as I said, that's a tiny and insignificant increase, but it didn't drop their incentive to work at all.
Just to add quickly, all I would say is, back to Carole's point, we're not factoring in the dignity of work. And actually what we need to do instead, to me, UBI is really just a cop-out for the rich fat cats to get away with not paying their workers properly. Because actually what we should be doing is making sure that they are paying their workers properly, and that the jobs that will, the AI machines that will take over certain jobs, we are coming up with new jobs.
Can I need to defend myself from something, please? Nick accused me of saying, of demeaning people who do muck jobs. I'm incredibly proud of the fact that I worked as a checkout girl in M&S, and I learnt more from doing that job.
You said low-skilled jobs. I quoted you.
Yeah, but I was... There are studies about low-income jobs and how they don't actually progress. But I learnt a lot from doing my job, and I resent you talking to me as if I'm some princess.
So, right, can I say on the assumption... sorry, Carole, I will cede to you in a second.
No, you won't. You'll cede in a second. Oh, my God.
I will cede.
I thought he said I'll say to you.
No, cede.
I will C-E-D-E to you.
So, this thing has been tried and failed many times before. In America, between 68 and 80, they trialled across 6 US states.
And all trials have been positive.
No, they were not positive. They said it had the opposite effect of making people go into work. But even with universal basic income...
And we know it does.
Yeah, we know it does.
Why do rich people still work?
This is what I'm about to question, right? This assumption that if you have a basic safety net for income, it means that you're not going to pursue the dignity of work, is precisely what this experiment we're talking about, the Finnish experiment, debunks. There was no significant drop in people wanting to seek or not seek work.
But these were all employed
as I may
people.
say, wait, just saying, we're getting to the core of this. If we don't think of another solution to the problem of how people can feed themselves, automation
let's make sure
is going
they
to...
are paid.
What you do...
That's the
solution.
solution.
No, the jobs won't be... Hold on.
And let's come up with new jobs.
The jobs won't exist.
But we've always created new industries. We know that. We know we can do it.
That's back to my point on creativity.
Policy should be about rewarding work, not replacing it.
Yeah.
Well, it is because...
But this experiment was not about that.
All this does is provide a safety net, and then people pursue paid work on top of the UBI they're receiving.
Have you heard of a book called The Absolved by a guy called Matthew Bennett? It's about exactly this. It's about whole swathes of society being given money by the state, supposedly to meditate, to go and expand their minds, to exercise, whatever. They all ended up as hopeless drunks, binging on junk food every day.
That's not what happened in Finland.
But I suspect
it is not.
That's what most of it... Because we're presuming people have hobbies. People who you just talked about, who work hard, who go out and earn a crust, they don't have time for hobbies. They don't have time for
That's right, they don't, which is why UBI is needed.
What they need is a job.
Well, as Maajid gives Carole a good seeding to, we must move on. That's almost it. But before we go, there's just time for our straight talk of the week. Now, not only is he one of the best batsmen in the world, the jewel in the English cricketing crown, and a role model for youngsters, it turns out Joe Root is a thoroughly good bloke as well. This week, the cheeky chappy England captain took time out from scoring a glorious century to put West Indies bowler Shannon Gabriel in his place after an altercation in the middle.
What's up? Nothing wrong with being gay.
For standing up against everyday prejudice, Joe Root, you win our straight talker of the week.
Love Joe. Oh, he's gorgeous as well.
Hello.
You've campaigned against all sorts of isms. You're going to have to applaud that because saying that about Gage, isn't
I'm
it?
all in.
Sensational.
And
Maajid,
he's
again.
hot as well.
When you think,
Like
I mean,
him even more.
he's running the team, he's trying to get them on a win, and he's also got all his sensitivities. You've got to say, pretty
Yeah.
impressive work by that.
But
really.
why are they sledging anyway? Why is that part of the sport?
Always
Shouldn't
has
be.
been in cricket.
Shouldn't
Always has been. Always, because you just try and put the bloke off his stride, whether he's a bowler or whether he's a batsman.
Oh, is that what you do?
Oh yeah, then that's complete mind game.
Is that the intention?
That's why she
Now
took
we
her.
just-
That's why she took her top off right at the beginning.
Yeah.
She tried to throw him in
Yeah.
stride, but you didn't succeed.
More sledging on the pledge.
Sledging on the pledge. That's it for this week's programme, but you can join in the debate by searching for The Pledge on Facebook or Twitter. And thank you for watching.